So, unfortunately, while I had a much more interesting idea planned, my human body has failed me. I am now sick. So, instead, I shall be reading three extracts from three different books, and I hope you enjoy. The first extract is from Albert Camus' The Outsider. What did it matter if accused of murder he was executed for not crying at his mother's funeral? Salamano's dog was just as important as his wife. The little robotic lady was just as guilty as the Parisian woman Manson had married. Just as guilty as Marie, who wanted me to marry her. What difference did it make if Raymond was my friend as well as Celeste? Who was a better person than him? What did it matter if Marie was now offering her lips to a new Fitzgerald? Couldn't this condemned man understand? And from the depths of my future, I was choking as I shouted all of this. The guards had already pulled the priest from my grasp and were threatening me. But he calmed them down and looked at me for a moment in silence. His eyes were full of tears. He turned around and walked out. That was the first extract. The second extract is from a very famous book I'm sure most people have heard of, if not read themselves, for school or otherwise. It is Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. I told him the truth, he said. He came to the door while we were getting ready to leave. And when I went, I sent down the crazy world that we weren't in. He tried to force his way upstairs. He was crazy enough to kill me if I hadn't told him who owned the car. His hand was on the revolver in his pocket every minute he was in the house. He broke off defiantly. What if I did tell him? That fellow had it coming to him. He threw dust in your eyes, just as he did in Daisy's. But he was a tough one. He ran over a model like you run over a dog, and never even stopped his car. There was nothing I could say except for one unutterable fact. That it wasn't true. And if you think I didn't have my share of suffering, look here. When I went up to give up that flat and I saw that damn box of dog biscuits sitting there on the sideboard, I sat down and cried like a baby. By God, it was awful. I couldn't forgive him or like him. But I saw what he had done. To him, was entirely justified. It was very careless and confused. They were callous people. Tom and Daisy. They smashed things up and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast callousness or whatever it was that kept them together, and that other people clean up the mess that he had made. I shook hands with him. It seemed silly not to, for I suddenly felt like as though I was talking to a child. Then he went off into the jewelry store to buy a pearl necklace, or perhaps a pair of cuff buttons, rid of my provincial squeamishness forever. That was the second extract, and the last extract is from a compilation of short stories from Ken Liu, known as the Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. I will be reading one of the other short stories. For a few thousand years, they gazed at the black hole together, from beyond the event horizon. This is lovely, he said, but sometimes I think I prefer my old shell. You're getting old, she said, just like me. They pressed against each other, and that region of the universe lit up briefly like an iron storm laughing. And then they said goodbye to each other. This is a nice planet, Maggie thought. It was a small planet, rather rocky, mostly covered by water. She landed on a large island near the mouth of a river. The sun hovered overhead, warm enough that she could see steam rising from the muddy riverbanks. Lightly, she glided over the alluvial plains. The mud was too tempting. She stopped, condensed herself until her energy patterns were strong enough. Churning the water, she scooped a mound of the rich, fertile mud onto the bank. Then she sculpted the mound until it resembled a man. Arms akimbo, legs splayed, a round head with vague indentations, and protrusions for eyes, nose, and mouth. She looked at the sculpture of gel for a while, caressed it, and left it to dry in the sun. Looking about herself, she saw blades of grass covered with bright silicone beads and black flowers that tried to absorb every bit of sunlight. She saw silver shapes darting through the brown water and golden shadows gliding through the indigo sky. She saw great scale-covered bodies lumbering and bellowing in the distance, and close by a great geyser erupted near the river, and rainbows appeared in the warm mist. She was alone. There was no one to converse with her, no one to share all this beauty. She heard a nervous rustling and looked for the source of the sound. A little way from the river, tiny creatures with eyes studded over their heads like diamonds peered up from the dense forests, made of trees with triangular trunks and pentagonal leaves. Closer and closer, she drifted to those creatures. Effortlessly, she reached inside them and took a hold of the long chains of a particular molecule, their instructions for the next generation. She made a small tweak and then let go. The creature yelped and skittered away at the strange sensation of having their insides adjusted. She had done nothing drastic, just a small adjustment, a nudge in the right direction. The change would continue to mutate, and the mutations would accumulate long after she left. In a few hundred generations, the change would be enough to cause a spark that would feed itself until the creatures would start to think of keeping a small piece of the sun alive at night, of naming things, of telling stories to each other about how everything came to be. They would be able to choose. Something new in the universe, someone new to the family. But for now, it was time to return to the stars. Maggie began to rise from the island. Below her, the sea sent wave after wave to crash against the shore, each wave catching up and surpassing the one before it, reaching a little farther up to the beach. Bits of sea foam floated up and rode the winds to parts unknown. Thank you. Those are the 3 extracts, and if you were interested by any of them, I highly recommend checking them out or even reading them yourself. I'm aware it's not everybody's cup of tea, but thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you're having a good day. I'm gonna go lay down and drink some water now. Goodbye.